Welcome in, y'all. Free agency is underway. There's been some big signings in the past. We know free agency is always been a big thing. Some big names always moving around. And no different this year. We got some big names that have already signed, some big names still out there. We're just going to go over some of the signings quick. I know we're still in the midst of it, but we're going to cover a lot of what's happened so far, at least some of the big ones. We'll start with Tua going to Atlanta here. And, this one, the Falcons were made fun of a bit, people making jokes at expense of Tua. And, I don't blame them. Tua's, had injury concerns. He struggled. But at the end of the day, I kind of like this on both sides, right? Atlanta has a good offense there. They have a good offense. They have a good team overall. And I really don't trust Penix to lead them places right now. I mean, maybe he'll grow, but I just didn't like what I've seen these last 2 years. They're in a weak division and they need to take advantage of it. You have a quarterback who is he, top 10? Probably not. No, even at the top of his game, but he's a good, solid starter when he's healthy out there on the field. He can win you football games. And I think with Tua, if he can stay healthy this year, the biggest if of all time, right? But Atlanta can win some games this year. They can definitely win that division. Carolina won it last year with a losing record. The Saints have gotten better. Panthers have kind of gotten better. Bucks have actually lost some pieces. The division's still wide open. I think Atlanta, when it's all said and done, heading into the season, might have the best looking roster of the bunch there. So I do like this move for Atlanta. And, I doubt he's their long-term solution, but at least he can bridge it until they find another quarterback solution. Or maybe he plays really well and he sticks with them. But overall, I kind of like this move there. Another one here, we got Kenneth Walker going to the Chiefs. And, I like this one as well. And when I say I like it, I like it for Seattle as well to let him walk. And I know that is a tough thing to say, letting the Super Bowl MVP walk. But running backs, historically, when you pay them, there are exceptions. I'm not going to act like there's not. We've seen some in the last few years. There are exceptions to this. But a lot of times when you pay running backs, it does not work out super well for you. And it's not like he was insanely efficient during the regular season this year. Mind you, he did a lot better without Charbonnet, but he wasn't lighting it up all year, okay? He really came on at the end. He's a good, solid back. But I think he might be slightly overvalued right now. But on the flip side, I don't mind this for Kansas City at all. They're parting ways with some other guys that, especially on the defensive side of the ball. They have some space to make some moves offensively. Running backs aren't crazy expensive, and they've really been missing a good, solid star running back there in Kansas City for a while, it feels like. And he can be the guy. He can fill that void. They need more offense. This Chiefs offense that we've known to be so powerful struggled against good defenses last year. And they're looking to get back to top form, so not a bad move overall there. Then you got Mike Evans going to San Francisco. A big move, right? It's tough for Tampa Bay to lose him. That's tough, but at the same time, they have some very talented wide receivers. They're a very crowded wide receiver room. Evans goes to San Fran. Can he stay on the field? He's dealt with some injury issues, and then he got the whole power plant there or thing there in San Fran. So, maybe that's a concern, but not the worst move, right? San Francisco, they've had wide receiver major struggles, right? And this all of a sudden turns it into a pretty solid unit, teaming him up with Pearsall over there. And they needed to do something to shore up the receivers, like I said, and a solid move. I don't know how well he fits in the scheme to go against a team like Seattle, the team that won the Super Bowl this year with the defense there. But we'll just have to see it. It's a solid signing. He's there for 3 years, so he'll be 35, 36 by the time that contract's up. So that's pretty old. I think that's one of the tough things when you sign someone like this. They're really good right now, but in those 30s, especially when you have some injuries, man, there can be a fall off here anytime soon. But overall, he'll definitely improve the offense. They had some money to spend, and overall good move, and obviously solid for Evans, going to more of a contender than Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay is still solid, though. This one and this trade is actually one I want to talk about. There's another trade I want to talk about until it was reversed. We'll get to that in a second. I was going to do that earlier. But this is the Rams trading for McDuffie. And, this is one of those trades that I think it's a win for both teams. To an extent, I guess, because the Chiefs, once they decided like they are not re-signing him, then this is a win. Whether or not you can question that decision, that's one thing. They don't want to pay the secondary, that's fine. But once they decided they weren't going to pay the secondary, then you can look at this trade from their point of view, and it's a great trade, right? The Chiefs got a great return for him, several draft picks coming out of this, more than I thought, would be received for him here. So they got a good pick load there for McDuffie. They decided they were going to move on. And the Rams, on the flip side, maybe a slight overpay, but at the same time, cornerback, they were probably a really good cornerback away from making and, probably winning the Super Bowl. This shores up that problem. They had money to spend. They re-signed him. They had 2 first-round draft picks to spend. They got rid of one of them for him, filled a gap. Overall, I think both teams walk away from this very happy. Chiefs get some tools to reload for these future years, and the Rams are, they're prepped now. They filled a big gap from this past season. Then we move on. Miami signing Malik Willis. This makes a ton of sense. This was where I predicted he would go if you watched my last video heading into free agency, and it is where he ended up. Miami kind of in a soft rebuild now, maybe even a full rebuild, and you have Malik Willis, a guy who, looked really good last year. He looked great, but very limited sample size. He has not started many games in his career. And this is a pretty solid contract, given that. A 3-year contract here. And the reason it works out is because the Dolphins don't need him to go carry them to the playoffs this season. It's a great spot for Malik Willis. It gets him time to continue to grow, progress, do good things, but not have this huge weight on his shoulders. He didn't go to some contender. He's going to start, no huge pressure. He can grow, and the team can grow with him. And by the time, he's really ready to go and take on some major challenges, the team hopefully can be ready at that time that they built around him. Again, rebuilds are tough. You got to do them right, but you have to assume they're gonna. And then they go at it together there. So I think this was a good move on both sides. It makes a ton of sense overall. I'm excited to see what he can do with more starting sample size. Moving on, though, it's time to talk about the Maxx Crosby ordeal. They had a trade with the Ravens, some first-round picks, and it, for those that don't know or missed it somehow, Crosby failed his physical. The Ravens rescinded the trade, and the Raiders are now back stuck with Crosby, who wants out. The Ravens instead go and sign Trey Hendrickson. We'll get to that in a moment, but I have never seen anything quite like this. Maybe on a smaller scale, but this was a big deal. The Raiders then went out and signed a ton of free agents with the money. They saved trading him. How does that look, right? Does that change their game plan? They still need to get rid of him now, but the issue is they seem a bit more obviously desperate given the situation. The price they get for him might be lower. Really unfortunate, especially not only lower because they're more desperate, but also lower because of the failed physical. I heard one report saying he couldn't even touch his toes in the physical, just from injury pain, I'm sure. Just really not good stuff there, but Raiders have made a lot of good moves this offseason. If they can still trade him for a good package, all will be well, but they gotta get it done. And then, like I said, the flip side of that is the Ravens acquiring Trey Hendrickson. And I think this is a great move because they signed him for the exact same price they were getting Crosby for, except they just saved several draft picks in doing it this way. They get a rusher who is pretty darn good. This a big time for the Ravens. Definitely the better move for them here. It works out quite well for Baltimore. I heard the league isn't happy with them, but if he failed his physical, he failed his physical, and Ravens get the sweet end of this deal, or at least for right now, it appears. Now the question becomes, where does Maxx Crosby go? You would think it would happen soon, by the time I finish making this or post this. Maybe that's already decided. We'll see. I'll be making a video in a couple days, kind of breaking down where every team's at. I'll be doing a power rankings with all these teams post free agency heading into the draft. So excited for that as well. What moves are you still waiting for? There's plenty of other moves I didn't cover, right? I said I wasn't going to cover everything in this video. I'll do that at a later time. But there's been some big moves. A lot of teams have quite improved. A lot of teams have sat on their hands and done absolutely nothing. We'll have to look into that as well. But a fun start to free agency, a bit of a chaotic start, and I'm looking for more fun in this offseason.